listening to Real Guy Radio.
How many pro wrestling news websites do you visit to get your daily news? 3, 4, maybe 5? Do yourself a favor and make that number 1. WrestleChat.net, the only professional wrestling news site that brings you all wrestling news all day long, and is home of the critically acclaimed Still Real to Us podcast, starring former CZW, ROH, and ECW announcer Eric Gargiulo and the champ Jeff Peck. That's WrestleChat.net. WrestleChat, it's where it's at.
It's still real.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome once again to this week's edition of the Still Real to Us show. Available for download at WrestleChat.net, TWFnews.com, WheelhouseRadio.com, CamelClutchBlog.com, and of course at iTunes. I am one half of the Wrestling Podcast Tag Team Champions of the World. I am the champ, Jeff Peck. Thank you for joining us, episode number 92, November 17th, 2011. And back in the saddle again as we get closer and closer to the Thanksgiving holiday. Welcome back to one and only Eric Gargiulo. Eric, how are we, my man?
I'm doing well. First day with the new tongue, Jeff.
Yeah, I know. Oofa. I don't know. A little. I guess I'm very excited for Survivor Series. And by the way, we're on Twitter, right, Eric? Should we just mention that we're on Twitter to be like what the WWE's doing? Maybe we'll try to get some things to trend here today. Jeff's tongue too big. Put it on Twitter. It's going to start trending in Virginia. Not worldwide with this show yet.
No, not at all. Now, have you and Mr. Obvious, have you guys talked about WWE and Twitter over the last couple of weeks?
We have. Actually, you know who joined me last week was, sit down, Eric, when I tell you this, because he is world-renowned. He was at your wedding. World-renowned cell phone videographer Betty Lopez was actually joining me last week.
Oh, you almost had me there. I thought you were going to say Luke Hawks when you said he was at your wedding, but then when you said cell phone and videographer, I knew where you were going.
And actually, we spent the most. We actually we went back a little bit, talked about your wedding, talked about what it was like to sit next to Howard Finkel.
What did he
say? He said he didn't mark out. He said that it was very nice of you to put him and Howard Finkel right near each other or next to one another, but he was taught by the great. Similar to Buddha and any other religious figures out there, Luke Hawks was his guidance into not mark out in front of Howard Finkel or any other wrestler. So he kind of kept it cool. He told me.
He could have marked out. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, Howard was in good fun. He was in good spirits that night, and as a matter of fact, he probably would prefer it for somebody to mark out because there weren't a whole lot of wrestling fans there. But no, that's good to hear. I hope he enjoyed the food, the festivities. The music wasn't really that great. I'll be the first one to admit it, but I hope he had a good time.
Yes, and but Eric, if it was you in Benny's shoes, now I was really surprised. I was kind of taken aback, like you didn't ask him anything, like what Chris Farley used to do on SNL, like, hey, remember that time when you,
Yes.
called Hulk Hogan down in the ring at WrestleMania 3? He said he didn't have any of those moments. I know he was at your wedding, and I know you had bigger things to deal with, but did you ask him at least one wrestling question?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? After the actual ceremony, we had a cocktail hour, and Howard was good enough to offer to come early and hang out in the cocktail hour and talk to anybody that wanted to talk to him. And I went in there, and Howard was kind of in a little corner all by himself, just hanging out. And just hanging. And I went over and introduced myself. It was the first time that I got a chance to actually meet him that night. And yeah, we sat over there and shot the shit for like 15 minutes. It's probably why I missed half of my cocktail hour, because I stood there for about 15, 20 minutes just shooting the shit with Howard. And I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, and I did ring announcing on such a minuscule level, like a peon compared to him. But, we both compared stories about getting into the business, and he told me, to me, it's fascinating when you meet somebody like that came in through a different era, and just to hear how he got into the business and different stories. Are you kidding me? I paid that man 4 figures to be at my wedding. I'm asking him questions.
I'm sure he actually expected any questions whatsoever. So, I mean, if it was me and I'm sitting next to Howard Finkel, I'm going to ask him a couple questions. Now I know here we are, like, what was it? How long have you been married now? 6 months, Eric?
No, actually, I think we're on 8 months now.
Holy cow. See how time flies?
Yeah, exactly.
I know that we're kind of going back here a little bit, and that's not the point of the show, but fuck it. That's how we run our show.
Right.
Howard Finkel.
And trending on Twitter. Fuck it. That's how we run our show.
That's exactly right. Stay tuned for more trends throughout this show. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this. Was Howard Finkel, does he know more about the wrestling business? And I might have asked you this 8 months ago. Does he know more about the wrestling business than, like, we would think of? Like, when you told him, hey, I worked at CZW, was he like, oh, Combat Zone Wrestling? Or is he just so WWE-oriented and kind of just lives in the bubble that he has no idea what else goes on the realm of World Wrestling Entertainment?
I think there's a lot of that. I think I think he was aware of ECW back during its time, but something like a CZW, he probably knows about of Ring of Honor by this point. But I don't want to say he lives in a bubble, but he's I don't know, Jeff. It's a good question, because he's also one of the first to really get involved with social media in the WWE. He's had a Twitter account for a while, and they really integrated him into Twitter by doing these chats with him on Twitter. So, I mean, he's out there in the social media. But, I don't think we actually I don't even think CZW actually came up. I think we were just talking more, from my end, I was listening most of the time, but, from my end, I think we discussed my time in ECW as a ring announcer and how I got in, and just some of the fun stories that I had working for Paul Heyman, because he knew Paul Heyman. And we talked, we compared some Paul Heyman stories and stuff. So, long-winded answer to your very short question. I really don't think so.
Yeah, I kind of got that gist as well. I mean, I'd be shocked if you sat down with him and mentioned some independent wrestling names like Chris Hero or something like that. I'd be, oh yeah, we know who he. I know who he is, but
it's the cravat.
What?
I was just imitating. I was saying, "Oh yeah, the cravat, the king of the cravat."
Yes, he would come back there, and then immediately they'd be like, "Remember that match in 2006 with Claudio Castagnoli?" And that would have really taken me back. But I also get the gist that he's very much in that WWE bubble. And speaking of Howard Finkel being very much involved in social media, and it's very funny that you say that, because, and this is how funny how this show all ties in here. If you told me that Howard Finkel would be responsible on the WWE's end for integrating social media into their product, I really wouldn't have narrowed him down first. I think my mind as a wrestling fan, from what I see, I would have narrowed it right down to like Joey Styles, being that he works with WWE.com. But Howard Finkel, despite him being rather old in age now, he's going to be in his late 50s, early 60s, Lord love him, you wouldn't think of him on a social media aspect. But he was very much involved in it, in the chat rooms during Raw. I believe he does that stuff on the website. Very involved on Twitter. And
too, I think when they had a heavy presence on AOL, he was involved in the AOL chat.
Oh yeah, wow, I remember that now. When they used to have like some sort of like online radio show or something too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That he was involved with. But do you think when Howard started doing social media that he would see the WWE take everything that we have in social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc., basically Twitter, and jam it down the throats of wrestling fans on Monday Night Raw?
Let me tell you something. That dude is just so happy to be working in wrestling. He's just like you and me, big wrestling fan, living out his dream every day. Probably the last guy that's going to make any kind of waves in the office. Wears the badge proudly that he has the longest streak of appearing at WrestleMania, on WrestleMania, longer than anybody. He is just, he's living the dream.